welcome to this World Satsanga, the pre-recorded World Satsanga that's being held in conjunction with the Moore Show. That's Kevin Moore of the Moore Show, and the date for transmission is the 17th of September 2016. And I apologise for those people who've tried to use the link towards Kevin Moore's YouTube site. He's been moving to Amsterdam to set up a studio there, so his ability to do everything he wanted to do has been a little bit limited. But he has said that he will include the previous two Satsangas and this particular Satsanga on his YouTube site over the next week or so. So we should be able to see those there. But those of you who do participate, who previously participated in a live Satsanga, who send questions in, and those who just listen in, will be able to download the file from my website, from the link on the website, and also from the blog. But please do remember it's a large file, because it's a somewhat higher quality file. It's about 50 megabytes, so it'll take a little bit longer than you're used to. So let's look at the agenda for today. I've got a lecture on the ego and how it affects our spiritual progression, which is actually published by Om Times magazine on, let's have a look at the date, later last year, and also it's part of the appendix in the Dialogues, which is a book that's being published by Ozark Mountain Publishing, my publisher, at the end of October 2016 / beginning of November 2016, because the ego is a particular shall I say piece of discussion that I had with my late wife Anne about in part of the Dialogues, and this particular part of it is like a summary of that discussion in terms of understanding what the ego is and how it affects our spiritual progression. Then we've got a number of different questions from people who've sent questions in from the blogs or previously and been part of the live Satsangas, whether it's the World Satsanga, Far East Satsanga, or the Slovenian Satsanga. And also got one from people who've written in via the website as well. So we'll see what we can do, see if we can do them all. If we can, we will. If not, we'll hold them over to the next Satsanga, which is the 22nd of October. And then right at the very end, we've got a meditation which should last about 15 minutes, which basically allows us to connect with all the people on the earth. So trying to set up a collective function. And you see, this is something which is particularly useful and particularly powerful in terms of working together, and if you like, cementing a mindset that is more in keeping with an advanced civilization, advanced spiritual civilization, rather than just a group of incarnate individuals who are going about their business without understanding who and what they are. So the first part, what is the ego and how it affects our spiritual progression? Well, in human terms, the ego can be loosely recognised as a state of beingness, and that beingness can be described as, if somebody is considered to have a big ego, they are considered to think a lot of themselves and are ambitious, along with many other things. These people are usually highly materialistic and not in control of their thoughts. Conversely, on the other hand, if somebody is considered to have little or no ego, they are considered to be introvert or lacking in ambition. And they are usually not very materialistic and generally in control of their thoughts. So they understand there's a bigger picture, and they understand that they're basically on a journey based upon working within a different environment, and that anything that traps them here should be avoided, so that they're very aware of who and what they are. But in both of these cases, it's the ego that's the controlling factor in our daily lives, so nobody escapes. The size of the ego actually alludes to the level of control the ego has on us. So if the ego has control of us, what is it exactly? Well, the ego is a creation, albeit a temporary creation. It is created as a result of an aspect, in brackets you want to call it that, soul, of our true energetic self, which is sometimes called the oversoul, the Godhead in Hindu text, or the higher self. And that's part of it is separated out from the true energetic self and projected into lower frequencies associated with our multiversal environment, to experience, learn and evolve in an accelerated way. To experience this evolutionary acceleration, the aspect or soul must enter into the frequencies in the way that they are best experienced, as if they were part of them. So to do so, it needs to associate itself with a vehicle that it can animate energetically. So this vehicle is, in our instance, the human form. And notice I said form and not body. It is classified as the human form because it uses 10 frequency levels to create it. The first 3 are the gross physical, the next 4 are spiritual physical, the partially energetic condition that makes up the semi-physical stroke energetic components of the human form, which are sometimes called the astral, and 3 energetic frequencies that allow the true energetic self to project an aspect of itself complete with sentience in an energetic step-down function that allows the partial communication between the aspect or the soul and the true energetic self while associated with the low frequencies that make up the human form. By the way, for those of you who heard the clock in the background, I apologise for that. It was simply too far away to turn it off before it finished. So that's the thing about recordings for you. Sometimes it's almost live as well. Okay, so let's get back to the ego. So the condition of being in partial communion or almost zero communication, that's partial communication or almost zero communication, is what creates the ego. The ego is therefore a condition where the sentience associated with the energies that are the aspect or the soul associate themselves in an isolated or individualized way with the gross physical aspect of the human form, the body. They are the human body. If you think of it in terms of all of the air that's in the atmosphere of the Earth being compressed into a small balloon, and then the knot made on the balloon, so that the air inside the balloon stays there, and the air that filled the balloon stays outside. So the larger air that fills the rest of the Earth, that's around the Earth, is our true energetic self, and the air that's inside the balloon is our the soul, the aspect. Now there is communication between the two, or should I say there is air that eventually escapes through that knot, but very, very slowly, so the balloon will deflate over a long period of time. And this inability to have the air come in and out of the part of the balloon that we inflate it through in a ready and easy way is what creates this lack of communication between the soul or the aspect of the true energetic self and the true energetic self itself. So the amount of air that's able to escape from the balloon is extremely low and limited, and so if you consider that as an information flow, it's extremely limited. If you consider the information flow based upon airflow when we're trying to blow the balloon up, that's better, but it's still constrained by the diameter of the balloon, the neck of the balloon itself. And we're only able to communicate with our true energetic self ourselves properly when the air, for instance, in the balloon is right outside of the balloon and back into the atmosphere. So it's worth thinking in those terms. It's also worth thinking in terms of if our true energetic self was the internet, and we as an aspect, an incarnate aspect, are a computer, then if we can normally communicate with the internet by being part of the internet or having instantaneous, massively fast broadband, then we're in total communication and have all the functions associated with that. But if we're having to communicate with the internet with an old modem that's operating at 1 or 2 kilobytes a second, if we're lucky, then you can see that the opportunity to communicate properly is difficult at best. Okay, so this is what creates the ego. The ego is created as a result of this temporary or transient condition, because of this it can only exist whilst it's in the human form, or while the human form is operational or alive, and when we're not self-realised. This is an important comment here. Okay, the ego is a temporary or transient condition because it can only exist whilst in the human form, i.e. when the air is in the balloon and the human form is alive, and when we're not self-realised. That means we've managed to undo the knot of the balloon and the air is able to pass freely to and fro through the neck of the balloon. Okay, so when the human form demises or dies, it dissolves. And although the experiential memories of what we are whilst incarnate are not lost, because they're always transmitted to the true energetic self in parallel with the experience itself, the ego can also be dissolved if we work on our spiritual development and regain contact with our true energetic self or higher self. So the ego knows that it's only transient, and it knows that while we're incarnate, its reign or control of us can be reduced or limited or put to one side. And so it does everything it can do in its power to stay in control of us, to stay alive for as long as it can. And so it works hard on arresting our spiritual progression. Okay. So the ego makes us think, in a lower sense, that we are the human body. And so it keeps us under control in that way, in making us think in materialistic ways, in ways that aren't higher frequency. So as incarnate aspects of our true energetic self, our main role is to become spiritually self-realised whilst incarnate, resuming communication with our true energetic self in the process, working in the physical whilst not being of the physical. Therefore, trying to undo the knot in the neck of the balloon. In this condition, there is no room for the ego, okay, and it dissolves. But the ego knows this and is patient. It's very sly and very resourceful, and can use convoluted methods to trick and fool us into thinking we've mastered it. It infuses us with feelings of self-consciousness, failure, depression, success, materialism, pride, and status. And success and pride are two emotions the ego can use with considerable skill, because we can feel these emotions as a result of being pleased with our spiritual progress and anything else we do. And when it uses these things to the best of its ability, we can think we're making spiritual progress when in effect we're not. So if you think about it and you pay attention, you can notice how some of the most spiritual people have the biggest egos. It's because they've lost control of their ego. They've lost control of their humble beginnings, and they start to believe what the ego tells them. And the ego feeds upon the thoughts and processes and verbal communication of others, which back it up as well. So the very moment we think we've mastered the ego, we've lost the battle, and the ego is back in control of us and our thoughts. And we lose some of our spiritual progression as a result. So best thing to do is stay aware, stay observant by observing yourself in a passive and non-judgmental way, and look for the signs of the ego rising within you. Then act upon it and continue your spiritual progression and your goal of becoming self-realised whilst incarnate. And the best way of doing that is to use something that's called the observer self. And the observer self was taught to me when I did my Brennan healing science work about 15 years ago, and it was described in a book called The Undefended Self by Susan Satsanga. And the book is still available on Amazon or ABE Books. That's A Alpha Baker Echo Books.com. I'm not sure if it's in publication now, but it's certainly available on Amazon and ABE Books, and it's very good. It gives you a very old-fashioned, now very old-fashioned, that's only 15 years ago or 20 years ago, way of cleaning out your psycho-spiritual thoughts and functions to eliminate most of the ego. We'll never eliminate all of the ego, and anybody who says they can eliminate the ego is being affected by the ego, basically. So we have to be careful with the ego. Okay, so that's a short lecture on the ego and how it affects our spiritual progression. And please do note that everybody on this planet has to be careful and not think that they've mastered the ego, because at the point we think we've mastered it, we've lost control of it again. And that's everybody, irrespective of how humble they seem. That even includes the Dalai Lama, and I'm sure he would agree. Okay, so let's look at the questions we've got and move forwards a moment. So there's a series of questions here from 4 different individuals. 3 of those individuals were part of the live Satsanga, and I thank them very much for their questions, but they were held in abeyance from last time because we ran out of time. So first question is, people seem very impatient around the world now, and thus more and more violent and crazy. But it seems that this is due to low frequencies of the people at first, but I suspect, and brackets just a wild thought, maybe it's also due to the rise of the background base frequency of the Earth, of our universe, and those other beings with lower frequencies not managing to raise their own frequencies, and they feel very annoyed and uncomfortable. And thus we have to take something into action just to release the imbalanced energy inside them, or may be certain low frequency spirits feel uncomfortable and people with similar frequencies get affected by it. So in effect, this is suggesting that there's an observation that there's and this is quite a good observation because it's happening all over the world, that we are spotting and seeing more low frequency thoughts, behaviours and actions. And this particular question poses two particular responses. One is it due to an overall frequential drop? And two, is it because those around us are evolving and ascending the frequencies, and therefore the interactive frequencies between individuals are becoming more and more out of phase, and therefore causing a level of discomfort, which results in anger and frustration with those who aren't moving up. And because ultimately they know that they should be doing the same thing. And the answer is both are correct. In essence, we are experiencing more lower frequency things, or observing them, because we are moving up collectively up the frequencies. And although we are, and have been for the last sort of 9 months, I'm being told, having a downward trough, so to speak, in frequency all over the world, there are still a number of people who are still able to move upwards. And this, if you like, causes a little bit of an issue, because we, as we move upwards, we start to pay more attention to these acts of atrocity, for instance, and poor thoughts and poor actions and poor behaviours. And so the understanding or ability to observe things becomes more prominent, becomes more obvious, and therefore the gap between the people in lower frequencies versus the gap in the higher frequencies again becomes bigger and bigger and bigger as well. And so when we interact with people of lower frequencies, we tend to get ignored, because if we are higher frequency, that is, we tend to get ignored because we are a higher frequency, and therefore they can't perceive us. The human eyes, the physical eyes, also work in conjunction with the third eye, the spiritual eye. And so what is not being perceived because of the frequency that we work on isn't also visualized or seen by the human eyes, the physical eyes as well. And so therefore, if we do communicate with somebody, they automatically pick up our higher frequency and become annoyed. And the annoyance is because of the disharmony in frequencies, basically. But it's also, in the background, it's the ego struggling to keep them lower frequency, of course, and also on the other side, they ultimately know that they should be doing the best they can do to rise up the frequencies. So that's why they become annoyed as well. So it's a function of those things. The second part of this is, and it may be through this that the whole Earth is going into a split into two or more event spaces, with one with a critical mass which managed to raise the frequencies high enough, and thus the world is populated with mainly high frequency people, and the other without such change. And so this is basically going through the Dolores Cannon New Earth type of scenario, where there's two versions of the Earth. One is a higher frequency, where those who are working in a more spiritual way do rise up in the frequencies and become part of that particular environment, whereas those others who haven't taken the opportunity to progress have stayed in a lower frequency, and therefore the environment on the Earth at a lower frequency is occupied by them. And the higher one can interface with the lower one, but the lower one can't interface with the higher one. And this is also what's happening as well. And there's another question at the moment which links into this, which talks about backfill people and the balances created by backfill people to ensure that those individuals who stay on this particular level, the older level, don't feel that they're seeing the whole world being depopulated. But nevertheless, these people are in the background. They're backfill, and they provide a balance for us, and they also benefit from it as well, even though they're not the same genre of soul, so to speak. So the Earth will ultimately split into more than two. Right now, excuse me. Right now, it's based upon dear me. Right now, it's based upon the first three frequencies, which are the gross physical, and the next level, the second Earth, is in the fourth frequency, which is the sort of the lower astral. The fifth frequency is the upper lower astral, sixth frequency is the lower upper astral, and the seventh frequency is the upper astral. And so the Earth will move through these along with the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th. But because it's polyfrequential, the Earth will also, I apologise for my coughing there, had a frog in my throat. Because the Earth is panfrequential, it exists in all of these frequencies anyway, concurrently. So as we move up them, we will be able to experience and work with that which is represented on those frequencies. So as we move up these frequencies, we can see down below the frequencies, so we can always work with those who are below us. But we still can't see those who are above us because we're a lower frequency than them. So eventually there's going to be around, if we think about it, there'll be 10 Earths, 9 of which could be classified as new Earths, but there'll be progressive new Earths. Okay, that's subject of another lecture, I have no doubt, which we can go into some detail with. But it explains, in essence, the Dolores Cannon theory and how it can be projected forwards into the understanding that I have as well. Okay. So the next question is comes from the most western part of the world, and the question is on page 87 of Beyond the Source 1, when discussing being drawn back into the physical. Source Entity 1 explains that those of lower frequency are indeed fighting back, and there's sort of 5 questions to this. First one, does this explain the situation referenced in the last newsletter about us dropping down? Yeah, my last newsletter in this particular instance, which would have been in August, describes the fact that we are experiencing some level of resistance to going up the frequencies, and those individuals who are of a lower frequency are sort of fighting back, if you want to call it that, and they are fighting back only in so much as they're getting more and more frustrated, and they therefore have feelings of anger as a result of experiencing higher frequencies around them, and those entities as well that are higher frequency as well. Okay, so the beings are basically us. The next question is who exactly are these beings? They're basically us. They are souls of a lower evolutionary level who are more, shall we say, immersed in their incarnation than those who are working at a higher level. And so they're not unseen spirit beings, which is the next question: are they unseen spirit beings intent on preventing the ascension of us on the earth? The answer is no. It's basically us. It's us. Burning our own cakes, so to speak. And the next question is: do we just ignore them and attempt to focus on spiritual things? And the answer is yes. We can try to help them if you wish. We can try to educate them, but they won't accept it. One or two may take the education to a certain level, but then will not go any further. So the answer to that question is: do we help them? Best thing we can do is be of service when we can, sense their limitations without ego, and work within those limitations, and just send them love. Even if it's a terrorist, send them love. That increases their frequency and will start to help them move in an upward spiral rather than a downward spiral. Okay, so this is the thing to do. Is to send them love, send them well-beings, and don't be angry towards them, because that just perpetuates their own energies. Okay. And the next to last question based upon this is: will they ever not be here working for their ends? When I started, okay. So when I there's 2 questions here. Okay, there's a 5A as well. So the first question is: will they ever not be here working for their own ends? The answer is yes. They will also evolve at some point, and they will also progress through the frequencies at some point as well. And this is important to note that we shouldn't become egotistical, so to speak, about our own position, about us thinking that we're more evolved than somebody else. I mean, we're all here to do a job, and that's to experience, learn, and evolve in the way that we are doing it. And there's no rules other than the way we want to do it ourselves. We can give ourselves some level, some guidance. We ask other entities to guide us in what we're achieving. But the most important thing is to recognise that people are doing it in their own way. And they will get there. As surely as we get there, they will also get there. And so it's important to think of it in that way. And the final question is, when I was discussing getting started on Anne's book, which is the Anne Dialogues, and another plug here, it will be available at the end of October 2016, which is stated as here. I was discussing this at the end of the Origin Speaks. The issue is time. She says we have a lot of work to do and not a lot of time. And the question is, in what sense is this true? And the comment is that Anne now has all the time in the world, and I hope that I still have all the time in the world to write and help humanity along the way as well. And thank you for asking that question. And so to back that up, the comment is from Source Entity Thesis that there are no time constraints. There is no time constraints. There is only ability and availability, if you want to call it that, to communicate in the way we can. And the not a lot of time is basically because Anne needed to move on and recommune with her true energetic self. And so working with me, in her case, was sort of holding her back a little bit. Although she could have communicated with me from the state of any form of communion that didn't involve full communion with her true energetic self. It was better for her and easier for me as well to have her in some of the frequencies that were sort of closer to the incarnate frequencies, and the amount of her own availability meant that she used a human term of not a lot of time. And of course, my own sort of longevity here, although I think I understand how long I'm supposed to be here, might not be what I think it is, because sometimes there is the odd curved ball, the odd wild card given to us, and sometimes our true energetic self decides that we've done enough and it is time to go. And so my own thoughts of my own longevity might be in error. That may well be there to help me focus on getting things done without worrying about how much time I've got left. And so it could be a case of also there's a combination there of how much of her own work she has to do, and therefore what she can spare to work with me, aligned with how long my incarnation has to last. So there's plenty. So time doesn't exist at all. It's just the window of opportunity that's available for her to work with me before she moves back into the state of whatever state of communion that she's agreed to have, or is having with her true energetic self. So I hope that answers that question, and I hope I am here long enough to finish what I'm told is 12 books. I'm working on the 7th right now, and I'm 38,500 words into it. So we'll see how we go. I'm expecting to finish the 12th book by the time I'm 65. So I've got 10 years to go, at least. I hope. Okay. And before we ask the question, listeners, no, I don't know everything about myself. That would be too easy. Everybody has to go through the maze blindfolded. I'm afraid it's part of the rules and regulations of being incarnate. Well, let's say that rules and regulations. There are no rules and regulations. It's simply a function of the frequencies being here. Okay. So the next question is. It's based upon the integration of the energies associated with the body. And the first one is, where does the ego sit in our body? You said it is right behind the heart chakra. So is it within our or near our soul seat? Others say the ego is programming or a mental construct, like for example, three-dimensional mind that believes in separation, lack, and limitation. Can I explain? Well, the ego. Because the ego is a construct, it's created as a function of separation, near total separation. It exists in the same place as the sentience, and the sentience sits in the soul seat. So the ego and the sentience are in the same place. They're one and the same thing. It's just that the ego is a function of the sentience through lack of communication and lack of connectivity, believing that the human body is what it is, and starts to think of itself as an individualized being, and that personality, if you want to call it that, that is created as a result of this individualization, or near total individualization, is what creates is what the ego is, basically. So it's our personality, although it's got a level of intelligence, the subconscious, if you want to call it that. Although some people might disagree with that description. The subconscious is the part that drives the ego. The personality is what you see in front of you when you speak to somebody who's incarnate. But the ultimate ego is both the personality that you see and work with, and the subconscious as well. Not the higher self. That's a completely different thing altogether. Okay. So the second question is the ego's functions limited to lower three chakras, which makes it identify with the gross physical form, or is the soul, in brackets sentience, animating all 10 chakras regardless of the ego? In essence, the ego's function is limited to the sentience and its connectivity to the human form, and so we can actually disregard the higher three energies, the 8th, 9th and 10th energy, and it seems to be limited to the first 7, so the gross physical and spiritual physical, because those are the energies that animate the human form. The other 3, the 8th, 9th and 10th, are simply a step down function that allows the energies to move down through the frequencies in a coherent way, which maintains some level of connectivity, but not enough to create the communication between the projected soul or aspect and the true energetic self. Okay. So where does the sentience sit in our body? Same place. It's in the soul seat. The question was in the last meditation you said it's behind the third eye or pointing ahead. Right, that's a misunderstanding. That's a human condition. We think of ourselves as sitting in our head because we look through our eyes, we speak through our mouth, we breathe through our nose, we listen through our ears. The senses, 4 of the senses that we use are in the head, the higher part of the body. So we think of ourselves, our intelligence, our sentience, as being in the head, and it's not. The sentience is in the soul seat, which is in the midpoint in between the front and the rear heart chakras. So it's in the same. So it's the location of sentience and the ego is the same place. And it's not it's just that we relate to ourselves as being in the head, in the point beyond the third eye. So that's a slight misunderstanding there. Okay. And the last one is our individualized free will the result of pure communication with our true energetic self, or pure collective consciousness with other human beings? And the answer to that is it's part of it, but it's not all of it. Individualized free will is something that we're given as a function of the allowable functionality of the incarnate vehicle and the soul that integrates with it. There are generally, I'll start again. Generally, most incarnate vehicles throughout the physical universe are operating in some form of collective consciousness. And there's various different forms of collective consciousness, various different forms of integration, and that's explained in I think in both the Origin Speaks and the Dialogues. But in essence, we have individualized free will as a function of what's being allowed for us to have. Clearly, because we become individualized, so to speak, as a function of the lower frequencies and incarnating into a vehicle that's low frequency, that augments that free will. Because we're not thinking in terms of everybody else, we're thinking in terms of ourselves. Notice that when we work with other beings and they're a higher frequency and we're a higher frequency, we start to think of each other collectively. We work for each other. We're of service to each other. That's thinking in a more collective way. So you can say that in some way, shape or form, that as we evolve, we think more collectively than we do as individuals. So and that's a bit of a clue there, because we are actually a collection of individualized sentient energies that are separated away from our creator, the source. So that should help answer that question. So in this question, how is individualized free will going to be given to other entities higher up in the physical universe, when they have already had more connectivity with their collective and their true energetic self? How does this really work for us and them at higher frequencies? Well, basically, I've just explained that, because the higher up the frequencies we go, we collectively have our own free will, and we individually have our free will. But as we become more evolved and we work in higher frequencies, we tend, I'm being told not tend, but generally, and more often than not, unless there's a specific piece of experience we need to have, we tend to work together rather than individually. Working individually and having sort of individual will to the detriment of others is based upon separation. It's based upon being disconnected. But when we move up the frequencies, we become more connected, and we start to realise who and what we are. We start to realise we're part of a much bigger collection of entities, much bigger being as a collection of entities. And so we start to work in this collective sense. We start to be of service to people. We start to think of others before ourselves. We lay our own lives down before others as well. So this is what happens. And so even though in the rest of in the higher frequencies of the physical universe, there are entities that are clearly have their own free will, they don't use it that way. They use it as a collective sense. But one statement I will make is that the entities that we would be involved in here, that are basically operating in the same frequencies, the first three and maybe the fourth, are the ones that are definitely not given free will. They operate in a collective sense, because you can see how destructive free will can be if used incorrectly. And it takes a long time to reverse the trend of being selfish and materialistic and antagonistic and medieval, so to speak. It takes a long time. But those entities that are higher up the frequency, 7th, 8th and 9th frequency, they, even though they have free will, they'll operate collectively, because that's what they are. We're ultimately a collection of sentience that's being given individuality for a moment. Okay, so good question, that. And the last one, and we do have time, I feel, to look at the last question. Yes, we do. And this question says, I'd like to ask the source entity some questions about the next American election. If he agrees that Donald Trump, for instance, is the right contender for president at this time, as there is lots of chaos and bad evil around the world. Okay, there's some other sort of nesty questions there, but I'm going to answer that question first. We'll just link in with source first. And the response is, we should be mature enough now to be able to recognise that we need leaders who are thinking for us and about us, rather than for themselves. So, irrespective of who the contenders are for a presidency, and this is any presidency, not particularly the American presidency, if we see how one of those contenders is operating, then we don't vote for them. This is a collective function, and it's all to do with choice. It's giving us the opportunity to make the right choice, to go down the right road, to take the right event space and the right event stream. We talk about event streams in the 7th book, the book it's called the Curators. I almost forgot my own book title then. That's not very good, is it? It's called the Curators, and we talk about event streams and the Curators. Okay, but it's all about choosing the right event stream, and it doesn't matter. Source gives us everything, even evil, as a function of choice. If we choose evil, then we need to experience it in some way, shape or form. But in the other sense is that we've got the chance not to choose evil. And if we choose evil, it may be that we need to come back and unchoose it later, or choose another route later, another incarnation. because evil is ultimately a function of lower frequency thoughts, behaviours and actions. Whereas if we chose somebody to be president who is thinking of the collective population of the states, for instance, or the rest of the world, and the ultimate heritage of us as incarnate individuals and what we're leaving for other incarnate individuals to work with, then we will not vote for that individual. So it's immaterial in that sense. That one individual has no power over us, only what we give it over us. So if we want him to lead us, we will vote for him. Does that make sense? It's about our choice. We're given opportunities, the right road, the wrong road, the best road, the slower road. Okay? And so it's up to us to make the right choice. Okay? And we can't blame anybody else. It's our choice. Okay? And the next part is, and the group ISIS say they are killing in the name of you. That's God. I feel sorry for all the people where the earthquakes and flooding, etc. happen, and are left without feeling safe. Okay. So first bit about ISIS is that again, everything that happens around us is a function of a waypoint, a marker, showing us how we shouldn't work. And as we start to reject these ways of working, reject terrorism, reject individuality, reject materialism, reject egotism, and become more aligned with working together in a loving and caring and sharing and progressive way, then we'll reject all these sorts of things. And then things like terrorism will burn out. It can't survive in an environment where, at the end of the day, everybody rejects it. Terrorism works upon people wanting something to happen. And the terrorists themselves, feeding on that lower frequency energy, work with it to project it. But at the end of the day, they're only doing God's work as well. God is giving us an example of how not to be. It's up to us to choose whether we are that which we're not supposed to be, or whether we choose the right way. Okay? We are ultimately in control of our own destiny, free will, but our own destiny is together, not separate. So we can send love to these people, we can send positive thoughts and actions, and hope that they themselves also come out of their downward spiral. And again, earthquakes and flooding, etc., all these natural things are again a way of getting us all to think together in a caring and sharing and loving way. Sending people care packages, sending people assistance, help, giving them shelter, sending them love, bringing if they've lost their family, giving them, asking them to join your family. All of these different things are all part of the things that occur when we're thinking in a higher frequency. If we're thinking a lower frequency, we just think, that person's in an earthquake, tough. That person's in a flood, wrong place, wrong time. Those sorts of things. But when we're thinking in the right way, we think, those people in an earthquake, let's send them what we can financially. If we haven't got it financially, let's send them love. Let's send them both anyway. And the same with flooding. So it's all to do with the thought process that we work with and how we progress. It's all to do with giving us opportunities. They're little milestones, little waypoints, little marker points to help us think in a collective way. Okay. Again, with all this stuff though, we have to be careful that we don't invoke the ego, because there are individuals who use it for egotistical purposes and not for the general sort of purpose. They put themselves on a pedestal in some way. So it has to be done in a selfless and a way which is totally of service. And the other part of the question is CERN. That's the location in Switzerland where they've got the Large Hadron Collider. Is CERN safe for us as scientists to find out how certain things of the solar planets, for instance, how to create dark matter, the God particle? Are they what they're made of? Are they messing around with nature and opening portals for other entities to come through? So are things like, are there things like lots of armies of entities going to come through these things and help us fight the evil? Let's get back to the CERN part first. Dark matter doesn't exist. Dark matter is a word that mankind's used to try and give a name to something that they know is in the universe. They know that the universe is connected, but all they can see in between the bright spots being galaxies, and in between the bright spots within the galaxies, the stars, is darkness. And that's because they're not seeing the next frequency level. And then at the next frequency level, they're not seeing the next frequency level. So when we start to see all those frequency levels, we'd start to see that actually there is no dark matter as such. There is only more content. So the higher up the frequencies we get, we see more content. And this is the same as being at street level in a city. When you're at street level in a city, you can only see the road in front of you and behind you, and maybe to the sides if you're lucky. If you walk up the fire escape of a building, you can see above the heads of those individuals who you couldn't see by in those roads, and you see further on in the road. You see for maybe a mile forwards and backwards, whereas previously you could see maybe 100 metres. If you go to the roof of a small building, you might see a few other small buildings, so you start to see the infrastructure of the streets. If you go to another higher building, you start to see more infrastructure. You can see how big the city is, where it's going to, the parks, the skyscrapers, the office blocks, the residential areas. And so we start to see more and more and more. And that's the same thing with frequencies. The higher up the frequencies we are, we see more of the content of the universe that is there. It's just that not all of it's on our frequency. And because not all of it's on our frequency, we haven't got the capacity to create machines that allow us to see things on frequencies that are higher. Eventually we will do as we rise up the frequencies. So there's no such thing as dark matter. And as for the God particle, well, everything's the God particle. Everything around us is God. There is nothing that is not God. Whether it's a cell, whether it's a wooden table, whether it's the atoms in a table, whether it's the electrons, the quarks, stratus and charm, whether it's right down to the anu, it's all God. So everything is God. There is nothing that can be classified as saying this particular item is a God particle. This particular item is the building block. It's impossible because it's all. Everything is. In every stage of gross physicality and frequency and dimension and zone and continuum and everything else that's associated with the structure of our source, not particularly the structure of our multiverse, everything is our source. So there's nothing that isn't. So a God particle will never be found because there's no such thing, because everything is. If they look at themselves, they'll realise that they themselves are the God particle. The CERN Large Hadron Collider itself is the God particle. They're not messing around with nature. In fact, actually, my understanding that I've been given about the Large Hadron Collider is it will never work. It will never achieve what they want to achieve because it's pushing, it is trying to crack a walnut with a sledgehammer. The more they push, the more resistance they get. The faster a boat goes, it never overtakes its own bow wave because it just creates a bigger bow wave. The faster they try to go, the less they can go faster. It's all to do with understanding. And when we understand the energetic side of things properly, we'll realise that it doesn't even take the power of a small flashlight battery to flick through the different frequencies and through the different dimensions. It doesn't take a huge miles-long particle accelerator to achieve it. It just needs the right understanding, the right evolutionary level. Technology, if you want to use it at some point, but afterwards we can do it ourselves. We can mentally project ourselves to these different places. Okay. And the last question is, do I see a host of armies come down to help us fight the evil, or take us off the planet if we have catastrophes, I would guess? And the answer is, there are already entities here that are operating on a different frequential level than the gross physical aspect of the human form. And so when we evolve and we ascend the frequencies, we will see, in actual fact, that these entities are already here. So they will not come down or appear or travel in ships. They're already here. It's just the people who are able to work with them do work with them. and people that are unaware of them because their limited perceptual range due to their own evolutionary level and lack of frequency don't see them. So we will be, in effect, left to our own devices because that's the way we learn. And if we go through another civilization before we get to the ultimate aim of being able to work collectively properly, then that'll be what's happening. It's just up to us. We need to collectively make the right decision whilst we are individual. We need to work separately together to make us work in the right way. And when we work in the right way, we'll ascend the frequencies, and it will accelerate. Because when we start to do it properly, we will really accelerate to the frequencies. And so our evolutionary level and our connectivity with our true energetic self will become more coherent, and therefore the ego will disappear as well, because we'll be communicating and working as if we are our true energetic self, and not an isolated and near totally separated smaller aspect of that true energetic self. Okay, well, that's all the questions. I'm really pleased we managed to get through them. Just going to check the time, and we've got enough time to do the meditation, which is fantastic. So this meditation is working on how to be in connectivity with all of the individuals on the earth. Okay, so I want you to just close your eyes, sit in a straight backed chair, feet flat on the ground, maintaining your grounding, your palms facing uppermost and the tops of the hands therefore placed on the interface between the lower body and the upper thighs. Back totally straight, eyes closed, but focused upon the location of the third eye, which is in between the two eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose. Okay. Now I want you to just consider that you're in a room, wherever you are, and you're alone in that room. And I want you to just project your consciousness in a probing way around the room, so that you feel the room. Feel the corners, feel the floor, feel the walls, feel the light switch, feel the electric power socket, feel the chair that you're on. Anything else in the room like cupboards, wardrobes, televisions, hi-fi units, just feel those. Just allow your sentience to move around them. Now I want you to move your consciousness outside of this sphere of constraint, this room, and into the rest of the house. And just pick up on the entities that are in the house with you. Maybe it's your husband, maybe it's your wife, maybe it's your children, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a loved animal, okay, a pet. Just focus on where they are. Doesn't have to be accurate. Just focus on where they are and draw a line to them. Just imagine yourself from your heart chakra drawing a line of connectivity to their heart chakra. You don't need to visualise it, just need to state mentally by using your mentally spoken words to achieve the same thing, that you're connecting to their heart chakra. You can do it individually or collectively. I'm connecting to the heart chakra of my dog, I'm connecting to the heart chakra of my daughter, I'm connecting to the heart chakra of my son, I'm connecting to the heart chakra of my husband or wife, or parent or grandparent, okay, or parent-in-law, or just visualise all of them together and send out these connecting links of energy to them in one go. Okay. Now, you've done this in your house, so do the same thing in the suburb that you're in. Just think of all the individuals in the houses. Maybe there's some that are close by that you know more closely than others. But just think about rising yourself above your house now, so you can see more of your suburb or your street or your road or your cul-de-sac or wherever you are. And that you ask your heart chakra to automatically send links out to the heart chakras of these people. And so you're connected to everybody in your suburb, your street. Rise further up and ask for those connections to be extended to the people in the rest of your area, your town. So you're doing your street and your suburb and your town, and see how many links of energies are projected out from your heart chakra to these other areas as well. Notice how many thousands you're starting to see now. Little links, little streams of energy coming out of your heart chakra, all the different people. Notice how connected you feel with them. Notice how your sentience, your state of beingness increases. Notice how you're able to feel bigger than you are. Notice how you feel as if you can tap into their thoughts. Okay, now rise yourself above your town and do the same thing. Ask your heart chakra to connect automatically with all of the beings in the city that you're in. So you get more, tens of thousands of links that link in with all the heart chakras of all the people in your city. You start to feel as if you're merging with them. Your individuality is being lost. Before you lose it totally though, let's extend it even further. Let's rise ourselves as if we're going up further into the air, so we can see the whole country or landmass that our city is within. And ask our heart chakra again to send out little links of energy or lines of energy to all the individuals on that landmass that's aligned with our country. And so our individuality starts to diminish as we become more and more connected with more and more individuals. We start to feel as if we are a much bigger being, a being that is created as a result of a collection of smaller beings, a sentience that is bigger than the individualized sentience. And finally, move out into orbit, if you like, orbit around the Earth. And again, ask your heart chakra to send out those lines of connectivity to all the heart chakras, to all of the rest of the people in the other countries, on the other land masses around the world, in the other cities, in the other suburbs, the other towns, the other roads, the other houses, the other rooms. So you're connected by literally billions of lines of connectivity. Notice how you feel. You feel as if you're on top of the world because you're in orbit and you're connected to all of these other incarnate souls, aspects of true energetic selves or higher selves, Godheads or oversouls. You have initiated this connectivity. Feel how difficult it is to maintain your individuality. You want to become part of it all. You want to become omniscient, omnipresent. The desire to become one with everything, one with everybody, is compelling beyond belief. The desire to become swept away in this sea of sentient energy which creates an amazing level of bliss is again compelling. Just stay there for a moment. We'll just stay here for a few minutes. Allow yourself to be absorbed. Allow yourself to lose your individuality as a small 1/7 billionth, as an example, of the size of the total sentience that's associated with all the incarnate entities on this planet. And allow all of that 7 billion plus incarnate souls and the energy associated with these sentience become one sentience. So we're one energy, one sentience, one being, one thought, one behavior, and one action. Just allow yourself to drift in all of this sentience. All of this sentience is one body now, one body of energy, one body of sentient energy. There is no individualized entities. There is only all of us together, collectively, as one. Stay here for a few moments longer. Depending upon how you've relaxed and let go of your personal constraints, thoughts, worries, fears, you'll be in various stages of dissolution, so to speak. So ask for all of your parts, all the sentient energy, all the bits of you that are distributed in this vast network of sentient beings that are creating a single conscious entity, single sentient energy that exists on the earth, to come back towards you. Command in a dictatorial way, if you like, that you are whole, that you are one, and that all parts of you are returning to you. All of your sentience, all the energy, that is the sentient energy, and other energies associated with you, are all pulled back in an unavoidable gravity that brings you back to you as your individual sentience. And having gained your individuality, you'll start to think clearly. And so you can ask your heart chakra to release the connections between all of those 7 billion plus individuals in the world. And so all you've got is the connections with the landmass or the country that you've connected with. And when you're ready, you can ask your heart chakra to remove all the connections with all those individuals in your country or your landmass, so that you're only left with the connections of those individuals in the city that you're in. So each time we remove the connectivity, we get more and more clearer. Our head becomes more and more clearer. Our thoughts are more and more sharper. And then you can ask your heart chakra to remove the connections between all those other individuals in the city, so that you're only left with the town within the city, or the suburb within the city. Again, your mind gets clearer, your thoughts get clearer. Your individuality becomes sharper. Your connectivity with the others diminishes. And now ask your heart chakra to remove connectivity with everybody else in your suburb or your town, so you've just got those in the road that your house exists within. And again, you become more and more individualized, more and more clear thinking, so to speak, in an individual way, not in a self-realized way. And then ask for your heart chakra to remove all those connections with those in the street that your house is in, so you've only got those connections with those entities in your own house. And then finally, ask your heart chakras to remove the connections with those other entities in your house. So there's just you in your room, and your ability to just move your sentience around the contours of the walls, the roof, or the ceiling, should say, and the floor, and any other objects within the room, to give you the expression of the ability to move your consciousness around. So when you're ready, slowly come back into the room, open your eyes, take some deep breaths. If you've got access to water, have some water. Take a drink, it'll help to ground you. And thank you very much for participating in this Satsanga, listening to it, downloading it, passing it on to friends, putting it on YouTube, whatever you want to do. Please feel free to move it around. All I'll ask you to do is reference it to Guy Needler and Beyond the Source, and of course reference it to Kevin Moore and The Moore Show. And thank you very much, everybody. I'm sending you God's love and my love as well, and blessings to you all, and look forward to connecting with you energetically in October, which will be October the 22nd. That's a Saturday again in 2016. Namaste, and goodbye, good afternoon, good morning, good night, good evening.